This is the playground. Green clover. They wanna make you over. Oh, over and over again. Okay. Good evening and welcome to ATT. It all ties together. Da-da-da-dum. So this episode will be, well, it will be diving into a lot of things, and it's not actually meant to be fast or an episode that goes into the details of anything. It's more like I'm painting with a wide or bigger brush to like give you the bigger picture of things, of our current reality today. And I am in no way a professional anything. I would like to just get that out there. I am not a medical professional or a journalist or anything professional. So why should you listen to me? Well, you really shouldn't. I would encourage everybody to think for themselves and to really try to find like the facts and not to listen to people propagating different narratives in order to get you to act a certain way. So I will be starting off today, and I do want to make an apology, a quick apology for missing out or not making an episode last week, but it was due to some technical difficulties that I was unable to solve. So, but I have solved them today, and hopefully everything will be running smoothly today. I hope. So, well, you really can't help but to dive into the issues of vaccines, as they are very much they are propagated all over the world, and the narrative in the mainstream lamestream media outlets seems to be that we are all eagerly waiting and anticipating their new vaccines. It's like, duh. Well, I'm not. I'm frightfully following like the news where most countries have now, or this is the way they portray it in media, and I would urge everybody not to believe like the narrative in media, because they always sell you some bullshit like everybody's eagerly anticipating a vaccine, when in truth that's just what they are propagating or what they want you to think that people are thinking. So on a side note, and I will end this whole news presentation with a vision that I had a few years ago, actually, about Donald Trump. And so I'm saving that for last, just to keep you hooked. Yes, were we all really eagerly awaiting to be used as guinea pigs, and to have our children used as guinea pigs for the medical cartels or the big pharma? I would argue not, because as a news follower, I have been following numerous doctors, professionals, medical professionals who have gone out and made different videos urging people to not believe in the narrative propagated in media. And these doctors do get censored. They get censored out of they censor them away from YouTube or Facebook or anywhere. So like it's hard to find them anywhere. And I have saved one of the videos that I would hope to share a little bit of. But that is not leaving all that aside. Like I could go into so many details when it comes to like vaccines and but I won't, because then I won't have time to I'm just gonna, there we go. Easy solutions to easy problems. This is just a side note also. Pfizer was funded 150 years ago by two German cousins. Now, why? Why are the Germans always out to get us all to walk in line and obediently adjust to the machine? I don't know. But I would just like to point out that Pfizer is a private, profit-driven company, and its total equity is $63.14 billion US dollars. That was their total equity 2019, which is sort of amazing. No, I won't even ask that question, because I was going to say, what other private company could get governments to hand them people as guinea pigs while they pay them out of the taxes that they already stole from us, and use us as guinea pigs and still push the narrative that it's for our own good. Yeah, really? Well, I'm leaving all that aside. And as usual, I do like to make some historical notes. So I'll backtrack. And I just wanted you to see the eerie similarity. There is really nothing new under the sun, because it's almost word for word scripted or narrated as it would have been today. So I'm going back to the year 1976, the very year that I was born. Woohoo! Great year. And a great year for the swine flu vaccine. So let's see if we can get it up here. And I'll just run this video really quickly so you can listen to it.
The story back in 1976, when the threat posed by the swine flu virus seemed very real indeed.
This virus was the cause of a pandemic in 1918 and 1919 that resulted in over 500,000 deaths in the United States, as well as 20 million deaths around the world.
See how easy it is to... Thus, the U.S. government's publicity machine was cranked into action to urge all America to protect itself against the swine flu menace.
Influenza is serious business. During major flu epidemics, millions of people are sick and thousands die. Well, this year you can get protection. The vaccines are safe, easy to take, and they can protect you against flu. So roll up your sleeve. Protect yourself.
One of those who did roll up her sleeve was Judy Roberts. She was perfectly healthy, an active woman, when in November of 1976, she took her shot. 2 weeks later, she says, she began to feel a numbness starting up her legs.
I joked about it at that time. I said, I'll be numb to the knees by Friday if this keeps up. By the following week, I was totally paralyzed.
So completely paralyzed, in fact, that they had to operate on her to enable her to breathe. And for 6 months, Judy Roberts was a quadriplegic. The diagnosis? A neurological disorder called Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS for short. These neurological diseases are little...
Yeah, this is harrowing, really. It's awful. And so these companies that will be making the vaccine for CV19, AstraZeneca, Moderna, and Pfizer, and they all do want to be exempt from any liabilities if anything was to go wrong with their vaccines. Now, why would they need to not be liable for any damages caused by their vaccines? Well, I think this is just what I think. I think that it might have something to do with them not being able to turn a profit anymore if people could actually sue them for the damage that they cause people. And I coined this term. I call it medical murder. Like when do we hold these medical cartels and the doctors pushing their different concoctions liable for the damage that they do to so many people, and especially children? It's really awful. But today's episode will not be dealing with the vaccines or the horrors of injecting aborted fetal cells or GMOs into your bloodstream. And the insane idea that you could mandate a government, give it the right to use police force and the military to inject everybody with whatever they wanted to. Who other than complete madmen would stand behind, or eugenicists would like be pushing this agenda? So, leaving all that aside, today's episode was going to be about like how media is really just it's a way of programming us. Like we watch television programs and we believe that we're watching the programs, while in reality we are the ones who are being programmed. And this goes way back. I was checking out the camera so that it didn't stop, because it's the first time that I'm using it. So this goes way back to like really before the Second World War. And also like you have this narrative pushed in public schools all over the world that the world is overpopulated and that the environment is suffering because the world is overpopulated and we need to get rid of meatless eaters. I think that was the term that Henry Kissinger used. Like they don't want people around. They don't like us. And while they push the narrative that there's a war going on between races, like it's blacks against whites, it's women against men, and so on, what it's really about is a worldwide multicultural elite who really don't give a fuck about you. They would really like to just see you die off. And they do tell you that. It's just that you're like in total denial and you don't want to hear it. But they come right out and tell you, like, it would be nice if you could just roll over and die because we do not need as many of you now as we did during the Industrial Revolution, when they actually needed laborers and workforce, people to be running like the industries and the machines. And that was also, and now I'm digressing again, and this is what I will allow myself to do because this is my show. Actually, like when you think about the psychologists and like we view mental health as a benign project brought to us by governments because they care so much about our mental health, which is complete and utter bullshit. They do not care about people's general health in any other matter except that when it suits them or when they have something to gain from it. And actually, when they implemented or brought in psychologists into workplaces, according to all the papers that I have read, it had nothing to do with people being depressed or not being happy. Actually, it had everything to do with people coming together and talking to each other during like the horrific working circumstances during industrialism in the world. Like people would actually be working in factories, and if they for low wages, almost like slave laborers, and what ended up happening was that people would like talk to each other and be really upset about this. They would be angry because like they would be doing all the work for companies that took all the profit, and they didn't get anything for it except a means to survive. And they would like talk to each other and eventually form unions or form other collective groups that would fight the people that employed them or that owned the companies. And this was a big hassle for them. So what they realized was that if they could get people to just vent their feelings individually, then they would not seek to build collective communities to deal with the problems in their workplaces. And in no way am I propagating communism. And this is also what they are really good at this. They will give you two choices. It's like, are you a liberal or a conservative? Or they will like push narcissism and individualism against like collectivism and communism. And what ends up happening is that we end up like following the pendulum between two polarized opposites, when we should really just be, according to me, dealing with individual problems and fine-tuning the way that we deal with it, and talking to each other, communicating, and not like today they're really pushing the narrative that we shouldn't even have dinners with our families anymore, because this isn't what I believe. Like you can read about it. They would prefer us to not like be family units. They would prefer us to have babies. Like they would have breeders who have babies, and our children will be given directly to the pedophiles in charge, and that they could do like whatever they wanted with everything and have the whole world for themselves and just use us as human resources. And on that note, I will run this short video just to like give you some idea of what it is I'm talking about. Here. It contains controversial subject matter. So this is a documentary called Human Resources. And it is awful, really. If there is a devil in history, it is the power principle.
Give me a baby, and I can make any kind of man. These are the words of John B. Watson, the founder of behaviorism. According to this worldview, the behavior of organisms, including human beings, is predictable and therefore controllable. In 1920, at Johns Hopkins University, Watson experimented on several babies ranging in age from 3 months to a year. The experiments were remarkable in their simplicity. He would present a candle to infants to see if they were afraid of fire. He would introduce animals to their environment to see if the children were afraid of them naturally, or only after a traumatic experience. He would make a hissing noise and observe the result.
Now, this is so awful. I have watched this documentary, and numerous times. And I would highly recommend you to listen to what they say today, or what the Johns Hopkins Society work on today, because they're really laying out maps or plans for all of humanity, or for all of our social structures, or how the world should be run or governed. And Johns Hopkins Society, they do have a lot of interesting text to go through about about their foreseeing pandemics, and they have another one planned, so you can look into that, and I won't dive into that further, but I will also, and this will seem really like it's all over the place, and I think it's okay that it is. I will eventually try to tie it together. I haven't planned it, so I hope I can, but otherwise it will just have to be all over the place, like I am. And so I'm jumping from this to behaviorism to Pavlovian conditioning of humans, like Dr. Pavlov ringing his bell. You could also check out Dr. Lobotomy. When you read the facts and the history behind stuff, it will blow your mind, the world. But I promised myself that I wouldn't rush this, so I won't rush this. So from that, I will be jumping into feminizing chemicals and drugs in our water supply, which is also very interesting. And these feminizing drugs in our water supply are turning frogs into females, or turning amphibians into females, and making frogs gay, basically, which is, I have really nothing against gay people, or people. I don't like it. It has nothing to do with that. And this is also I'll make this point really quick, and then I'll run the video. What I'm trying to say is that if you believe that you have original thoughts, and that you're not susceptible to mind control, or that you're just yeah, I came up with this, I love rainbow flags, or I like this or that, then you're totally oblivious to the fact that brain scientists, psychologists, doctors have been working for hundreds of years to fine-tune the instruments to condition you into wanting certain things, or into having certain behaviors. And in the end of the day, you really ask yourself why, but why would you ask that? We all know that mad scientists will do things just in order to observe them, really. If you take out the equation of morality or decency, or having any kind of empathy for humankind, then it would be just like if you could have an ant farm and you would burn the ants and just to see what happens. Then try to imagine other people viewing you as ants and basically experimenting on you. And then I do not consent. I do not consent to any government doing any experiments on me. I am a free human being, no matter what they say. And that is the end of it. I'm a natural human being. That's it. So here we go. Let's go to this is feminizing chemicals in the water supplies that are not only the chemicals do not seep into the water supplies only from all different kinds of medications that people use. They are also a part of the agricultural industry and the chemicals used there.
50% of the U.S.'s agricultural products come out of California. It's something like 85% of the country's lettuce comes out of Salinas, 90% of the almonds. It's called the salad bowl of America. California uses more pesticides than any other state. The second biggest is Florida. Things like chlorpicrin is used out here on the strawberries. Chlorpicrin is a nerve gas. These are guys who are applying it, they're out there picking it. Methyl bromide is a fumigant, something they pump into the soil. What are some of the other big ones, you guys? Some atrazine. This will all end up in the river that we're working in here. It might look like we're out in the bush somewhere, but 15 feet on either side, we're surrounded by agriculture, and the runoff ends up in this river. All of the algae is a result of all the nutrients, because a lot of fertilizers are used in agriculture. And once those fertilizers get into the water, you get these blooms of algae. I wouldn't say it's a sign of a healthy river. This is a site where we typically find compromised immune systems, tadpoles that aren't able to fight off disease. Our data so far suggests that the mixture of pesticides causes an increase in stress hormones, and those stress hormones cause immunosuppression, which leads to the inability to respond to any kind of disease pathogen.
While investigating chemical runoff, Hayes stumbled on another culprit.
We started going to Salinas River looking for the native red-legged frog, and it turns out that it has been completely replaced on the river by bullfrogs. This invasive bullfrog itself is one of the causes for decline in many of these areas. And so we're studying them in areas where they're not doing well to try to understand what maybe.
So I cut him off. Like, I love this scientist. And please do look into him. I will be sharing all the links to all the videos that I have shown so that they will be easily accessible for you if you do want to watch him, which I would highly recommend. He's awesome. And there are so many intelligent, awesome people out there working for the greater good of humanity for real, not like the zombies, like for the greater good, we need to sacrifice freedom for the greater good. Not those kind of like robotic people, or the people who actually do work for the greater good of everybody. And they are out there and they are everywhere, and they are the ones who are being silenced today. So please do not run psychopaths' errands just because they pay you. That's like really, that's not sympathetic at all, actually. That is just you using your uniform or your title to exercise control over other people, which is really unsympathetic, if you ask me, and it has nothing to do with being a decent or good human being. So, leaving all that aside, because this was just like to like give you a bigger picture of how we can be manipulated via chemicals or via programming, like indoctrination, which is sort of like repeating something. If you repeat a message long enough, like it becomes truth. Like it doesn't matter if it's true or not. And really arguing leads you nowhere, except if you're doing it for fun or just to exercise your own brain or verbal capacity. Then it does fill a function. But in the end of the day, if you argue too much, what ends up happening is you end up acknowledging the narrative laid. It's like this was used during the Nazi era and the Second World War, and it's been used during communism and all fascist eras in the world. And the fascists still like run, or they don't run the world, because I do not believe that anybody could like run the whole world. This is like an insanity in itself, imagining that you could. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. So I'll just jump to Justin Trudeau, because what I do want to show everybody is just, because if if I tell people that there's an agenda or that there's like a worldwide plan for everybody, people will like, oh no, that's crazy. That is not possible. And I'm like, yeah, really? So what I've been trying to tell people for years is like that the Queen of England is not some benign old lady who doesn't own anything, because this is the general perception that people have. So I just wanted to run a quick video of Justin Trudeau swearing his allegiance when Justin Trudeau sworn in as Canada's next prime minister, and just listen to what he says, please, so that you can like understand where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to tell you.
I, Justin P.J. Trudeau, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, her heirs and successors. So help me God. I, Justin P.J. Trudeau, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I shall be a true and faithful servant to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II as a member of Her Majesty's Privy Council for Canada.
And there you go. So who are they? I get this question a lot. Like, who are they? Like it isn't obvious. Like it's out there. You just need to look it up. Like you have like really powerful, extremely wealthy people who have inherited wealth, whether it be via like the nobility or the noble families around the world, and they are not like, it's not one race. Like this is what they try to sell you. It's like it's one race doing everything. Or like, no, that is bullshit. They are just preying on your natural instinct to fear anything foreign, because we are all racists in a way, because we fear what is strange or not common to us, and we tend to like feel comfortable with the things that we recognize and have close to us. So they are like, for instance, the Queen of England, the Catholic Church. You have like the House of Saud, the Saudi Arabian noble families. And then you also have like the banker families. Like people they give way too much airtime talking about like the Rothschilds. Like who gives a fuck? Like you have the Habsburgs and dozens of other families that you could read about. So why stare yourself blind at one spot when you could have like a bigger, more comprehensive picture of what's going on? And I'm not going to rush it today, so this episode will be longer than 30 minutes, and I do have the gift of the gab, because I apparently I can talk forever about this, and I won't talk forever. I just really quickly want to dive into Albert Pike. Albert Pike is one of the original Freemasons, and I'll just like give him a quick intro here. He is the original Satanist Freemason.
Albert Pike was born in December of 1809. He was exceptionally bright and allegedly accepted into Harvard, although he didn't have the money to attend. Today, Pike is remembered as a pioneer in the early courts of Arkansas, a Confederate officer during the Civil War, and a central figure in the development of Freemasonry. He's still the only Confederate officer with a statue in Washington, D.C. History is divided on Pike. He's been called a genius, a villain, and an occultist. But that's not all there is to this story. Some people believe Albert Pike was more than just a lawyer and a general. Much, much more. Here's where it gets crazy. Depending on who you ask, Albert Pike may have been the leader of the Ku Klux Klan, a Satan worshiper, or even the king of the Freemasons. In The Unseen Hand, A. Ralph Epperson argues that a great deal of historical events have been planned in advance. Epperson believed that Albert Pike was at the center of this conspiracy and the highest-ranking Mason in the United States, or possibly the world.
So I'll cut him off there. I hate cutting people off, but So anyway, and I will not be diving into too deeply into Albert Pike, but on an interesting note, he did write some interesting things about the Fourth World War, which you should read about, where he talks about the Fourth World War being waged, a war that will be waged between Christians and Muslims. Yeah, you recognize that. And I'll tell you this on a personal note, like my father was a Muslim and my mother was Christian. So like I grew up in all the insane prejudice that people have against each other. And I'll just like, for me, it seems pretty obvious that people are fucked up everywhere or really decent and nice everywhere. It depends on who you meet and who they are really, and the qualities that they have, like if they are good people or not. That's like the most important thing, not if they're like Muslim or Christians, or like people put way too much emphasis on that. And also, like if you live in a Muslim country, why do people assume that like people who grow up in Muslim countries that all of them are really Muslim? It's a cultural narrative that is shared, and in no way are these shared cultural narratives something that individuals choose. It is put upon them by government, by the ones trying to govern them. So yeah, it's like I'll just like I'm really digressing quite a lot, but I wanted to get this story in here because like it was just like my brother told me that he was sitting in a mosque one day and he thought like, wow, like this is insane. How could people believe this? And I told him like, have you ever wondered how many people there is that are sitting silently in mosques, churches, or government run, like the modern day religions are science or like the belief in government. How many people are actually sitting there like massaging their heads thinking like this is insane, but they don't say it because like we're so scared of being ridiculed or put in our place. And we learn this early on in school, like you get bullied if you step out of line or if you express any original thought, so you tend to like stay in line and stay quiet, which I would highly recommend you not to stay quiet and to speak your mind. And otherwise, we might end up making David Rockefeller's dream come true. And this is a direct quote, by the way, from David Rockefeller. The social experiment in China under Chairman Mao's leadership is one of the most important and successful in history. Please wrap your head around this. This is what David Rockefeller said. Now, if you know anything about Chairman Mao, then you should know that he was a eugenicist bastard who deliberately starved the whole of China, turning them into cannibals. And the horrors of the Mao's communism in China, it's beyond words, really. And then to have a man today like David Rockefeller, I don't even remember if he's still alive or not, like hail this as like a positive thing, it really tells you everything you need to know about it. So let's see here. And there we go. So, and really quickly, it's... I'm getting to my like vision or prediction about Donald Trump, and I'll give myself like about at least like 10 minutes more to dive into some other issues, because most people are not aware of George Bush or Bush Sr.'s involvement in during the Second World War. He has a brilliant speech that you can't find anything nowadays on YouTube. They have like cleaned up YouTube really well from any kind of interesting information. So what you find nowadays is just propaganda. Like basically telling you that James Alefantis and Comet Ping Pong was a wonderful place for children, and blah, blah, blah. And George Bush, they are like wonderful, human-loving people, and blah, blah, blah. And it's insane. Like the amount of information that the AI is cleaning off YouTube and all these sites it's amazing. I'm so glad I did read up or watch everything 10 years ago or 12 years ago, because it's gone today. Most of it is gone. It's really hard to find. But I would like to recommend this interview, and I will share the links below later.
Lamar Waldron. Lamar Waldron is a JFK historian and author. The Hidden History of the JFK Assassination is his most recent book. Ultimate Sacrifice and Legacy of Secrecy he wrote in collaboration with me about the Kennedy assassination and the Bobby Kennedy assassination and the Martin Luther King assassination. And Lamar, welcome back to the program.
Great to be with you again, Tom.
So let's just go through this, Lamar. Why, in your opinion, is talking about the crimes of George Herbert Walker Bush important?
Well, talking about his many crimes is super important today. Like you said, we've got nothing but, praise for the last week, with pretty much in the mainstream media no mention of his many crimes. And even some progressives I know are now looking at Bush Sr. with rose-colored glasses, as if those guys were so much better than Trump. Boy, those were the great old days, which is just, not true. Bush is not some aberration. He's the logical outcome of the crimes that began with Bush Sr. and continued with Bush Jr.
Yeah, a lot of us refer to the Bush crime family, and we didn't mean it as a joke.
Well, and that's exactly right, because the Trump family is not the first crime family in the White House. The Bush family was, and then...
And here I will have to cut him off, Tom. I'm so sorry. But if I, you have every opportunity, if you're interested, to listen to this later, which I would highly recommend you to do. And I just wanted to paint a picture of how everything in politics is just... it's a big show or a play to get you to be involved in things that actually do not matter, or to swallow a certain narrative, believing that you could vote your way out of this boiling pot, which I do not believe that you can, or I would argue that you'd have to be insane to think that you could vote your way out of this. So the Bush family, you have Bush Senior's history during the Second World War, which I would don't look for it on YouTube, but do listen to Tom Hartman's program. It is great. And jumping to the later Bush, and euphemisms are really popular in a society run by maniacs, because if they actually just went out and told you that we want to rule the whole world and we want you microchipped and we do not want you to have any kind of free will and any right to your families and la-di-da, then people would obviously not vote for that. So you can't go out and tell it like it is. You have to use euphemisms. And one of the most horrendous euphemisms used in our time is the Arabic Spring. Why not call it the Arabic bloodbath or the Arabic slaughter, which is basically what it was, because somehow they got mostly the left, but also some conservatives and people on the right to stand behind the push to bomb several countries back to the Stone Age. Oh God, this it's painful. It is really painful talking about this. It does hurt. And in no way am I belittling the suffering of all these people. On the contrary, I am trying to tell you that the same bastards who got you to stand behind endless wars of aggression are still working the same narrative and getting you to stand behind killing your fellow man, woman, yeah, your sisters and brothers, which is awful. You can't like, so you have Bush, and you had like the Twin Towers and no planes. I tell you, like when you heard that the first time, or I'm guessing like people heard that the first time, they're like, no, that's crazy. What do they mean no planes? But no, planes hit the buildings, and Building 7, like, and also like controlled demolitions. You know how that, like you could just watch the videos. You don't have to like read anything, just watch the videos. And this is General Wesley Clark, and he had a really interesting, I watched an interesting interview with him.
Told me that he said, you know, we're going to invade Iraq. I said, but why? And he said, I don't know. He said, I guess because we don't know what else to do. But in fact, the why of it went back a decade to the spring of 1991. It went back to the argument inside the Republican Party about whether or not the Gulf War should have ended with the capture of Baghdad and the overthrow of Saddam Hussein. And in 1991, when I talked to Secretary Wolfowitz, you know, he said, we didn't get rid of Saddam Hussein, and we should have. He said, we've only got 5 or 10 years to clean up the Middle East. These whole Soviet surrogate regimes like Syria and Iraq, get rid of them before the next superpower comes along and challenges. We didn't foresee that we'd actually be using force aggressively.
I do not for a second believe that they did not foresee that they would be using force aggressively. They sell wars. They sell narratives from like, and they have been doing that forever. Like you have false flags. We all know about false flags. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. They are looking for excuses to get populations behind any and every war effort because it is big business for the companies, the military-industrial complex. And also, it is a means for the governing powers of the world to implement even more control on the populations. And here is just a reminder what NATO did and just...
Destroyed belonged to General Hurdi al-Akhmoudi, one of the people closest to Colonel Gaddafi. He was among those who took part in the military coup to bring the Libyan leader to power 41 years ago. The general escaped injury, but most of his family died in the attack.
If you'd seen him yesterday, you wouldn't believe me.
This man is talking about little Al-Khweldi, one of the grandchildren of the general and one of 3 kids killed in the incident. The day of the bombing, the family had gathered with friends to celebrate his 4th birthday.
Libyan civilian.
Now just try to imagine Libyans bombing the shit out of you in your country and how that would make you feel. And now we're like, everybody's complaining in Europe and nobody seems to remember history. Like most of the people were like supporting. No, wait, I'll correct myself there. Because the protests during or before they invaded Iraq were the biggest protests against the war ever documented all around the world. Like basically every nation from Mexico to Sweden to Norway to Thailand or anywhere, people were out on the street in mass scale just with one message, and it was, do not invade Iraq, do not start a war, do not bomb these people, please don't. And did they listen? Yeah, that should give you a clue about how much they care about your opinion. And this is, they also bombed, that NATO deliberately bombed and destroyed Libya's water infrastructure. Who the fuck does that? Except for war criminals and psychopaths. They do that. And let's see. So we had General Clark, and here we go. Forum on Leadership 2019. And do you recognize Henry Kissinger? Like, they all look like evil villains in some sort of movie. And this is the Forum on Leadership, the New World Order. They talk about their New World Order all the time. It is not a New World Order. It is an old world order. And this is, in the last episode of ATT, I talked about how fascism was, or evil really was, the belief that you could sacrifice good in order to do something that is the greater good. Like you do something evil for the greater good. And this is what they believe. They believe that you need to do something evil for the greater good. Whilst I would argue that when you do something evil for the greater good, you end up doing something evil. That's all. It's like you're either doing good or you're an evil psychopath. You can't have it both ways. You can't be like wrestling people down and force injecting them with big pharmas like psycho juice and say that you're doing it for the greater good. Then you're a fascist. This is what they do. And here I will like make a prediction, or this is something that I see happening all around the world, and I think they will try to really push this, is that they are using really, really young women in the front line, like putting them in positions of power. Why, would you ask? Well, I think they use really young women because young women are brought up to think like that they have been oppressed, and like they have a right, this is their time, and now they need to like, or now they have an opportunity to exercise their power. So they're really power hungry, and they're really justified, and they really just want to wear a uniform, but they have not usually thought through what they are doing or the consequences of their actions. They just want to wear a uniform and be really cool and sexy in their uniforms and be able to tell guys like what to do. And yeah, I think like the ultimate sin really is being shallow. And here we go. I'll just give him some.
Largely due to the failure, largely due to the failure of the governments that have been in office.
And do you think that the alliances and that the forces around our democratic institutions are strong enough to hold against these threats?
Yes, I do believe that it's that, but the politics in all democracies has become its skill, more of a skill in presentation than a development of conviction.
No, I can't like, oh God, it takes forever for this dude to get like say anything. How do people even have the patience to listen to this guy? Oh, fuck him. I'm turning this off. Yeah, I won't listen to him. And let's see if I just had one last. I think that might actually be it. Great. So, now, to my prediction or my vision, which I had like 8 or 10 years ago. I had this vision that they would roll out or use Donald J. Trump, much in the similar capacity as they used Hitler during the Second World War. And for me, I do not for 1 second believe that these dudes run anything. They are just a logo or a brand for the corporation that they need at the moment. And the vision I got was that they would use Trump as a logo for like the wholesome, clean, make America great again, make Germany great again. They really are very uncreative with their scripts, and they tend to like use the same scripts over and over again. And the reason why they would use him is they would use him to like back up and further inflate like the American dollar, but also to give like a renaissance to the US as a war machine, like to further push the war effort that they started with the Arabic Spring or the Arabic bloodbath. And Trump would be portrayed as the Landsfather, like the big strong guy who would like be dealing with the pedophiles and dealing with the corruption, and he would say it like it is, and so then I started wondering. I was like, yeah, well then why did they let like creepy sniffing pedo Biden win the election? And this is a reminder again. Nobody wins or loses anything. It's just a show to get you sucked into like watching their shows. Like you're watching Netflix and HBO, and you're also watching the fake wrestling of politics. While in the meantime, the geopolitics of everything is working smoothly. There are no like surprises in war because you really need to plan wars. You need to get ships into place. You need to build some infrastructure in certain areas, or you need so it's a really tedious and it's a process that needs a lot of work and planning, and you cannot do it in a spur of the moment. Like it takes time to move troops. So when they sell you like the narrative like that, so we should invade, and then they invade the next day, then you should know that they have already planned this and like set all the military personnel in place so that they can invade in 1 day's time or 1 week's time. Otherwise, it would take months for them to logistically just work through everything and practically get their war machine in place. And then I thought, then this hit me, and I'm in no way saying or even hoping that this happens. On the contrary, I'm hoping that it doesn't. I thought like, yeah, what they will do now, because they got a lot of people believing in Trump with the QAnons and like, yeah, Trump will deal with pedophilia. I'm like, yeah, really? That's so deluded if you ask me. And also like if you had somebody like Trump dealing with the pedophiles in office, then they would just sacrifice the expendable ones but still keep the same system running. And then it hit me like they might do this, and that is like they will announce that, oh, the voting was faked, and like it's not legal, and it was all done wrong, and therefore Trump is the real president, which would like make Americans go insane. They'd be like, oh yeah, like finally some justice. Finally, the corruption is rooted out and we have our real president. And that is just really giving you an incentive to believe even more in the old system, which is the system selling you the New World Order. And so what do I want to say? This is just another side note, like the company that does the testing for CV19 is actually called Dominion Diagnostics. Like they're new. And have you seen Klaus Schwab with his like evil emperor dress? It's like the Great Reset. Like you can't make this shit up. Well, yeah, you can if you're watching crappy fantasy movies. Like these people have no imagination. But it's depressing that so many people like fall for it. You would imagine like if somebody lied to you like for 100 years, that eventually you would like think like, yeah, this dude is full of crap. I won't listen to them anymore. Fuck him. So, but nah. Surprisingly, many people do still follow the mainstream narrative. And I do not believe that they follow the mainstream narrative because they believe in anything that anybody says. It is just because they know that they are threatened into believing the mainstream narrative. And they do not want to be one of those people who get dragged away to some quarantine camp somewhere. And I saw horrendous videos of quarantine camps, or let's just call them concentration camps, because that is what they are, in India, where they like have 10 people pushed into a room that's like the size of a cell, a prison cell, with no decent like toilets or no food. And it's like, oh, it's the insanity of it all. The insanity of it all. So what I want to say, Alyssa, what do you want to say? I want to say, like, in a time where everybody's talking about, like, no mind, don't think about it, just do what you're told. I love that meme that's going around, like the left in 1990 was like, fuck you, I won't do what you told me. And now they're like, the left in 2020 is, fuck you and just do what they told you. And it's like, Jesus. Like, humanity is not left to choose between two horrors. We actually have every possibility to think for ourselves, to communicate with each other, and to create solutions for like the problems we face. And if you cannot see that giving medical cartels, privately owned medical, big pharma that ties into like big Chemcorp, the right to like inject people with anything they want. And if you can't see that that's fascism, then I'm pretty sure nobody can like open your eyes. Then you're just like really, really so indoctrinated into the system that you refuse to see it. And I don't know if you refuse to see it because like your paycheck is like subjecting you to the belief, or if you actually believe in it. And I don't think it matters. But I would urge you all to please think about all the suffering that is created in the world due to lockdowns and due to restrictions. And the insane idea that we should let any government control how we move and live our lives. Like, humanity has never really been a threat to anyone except itself, because we end up working for fucking psychopaths that just want us dead. And I think it's time we like brushed off the self-hate and just like straightened our spine up and just really speak out. And all this like no mind bullshit and believing in esoteric things like alien species and blah, blah, blah. It's like, why not focus on reality, the reality you're living in? Because otherwise, how would you be able to deal with any of the problems that you're facing if you're running blindsided with your eye closed into a situation that is really dangerous for all of us? I feel like we should be protecting ourselves, keeping each other close and not distant, and really communicating with each other in a loving and respectful manner to see what kind of solutions we can come up with together, and not be giving our power away to the psychopaths that rule today. So that is it. 1 hour and 3 minutes. Jesus, that was lengthy, and I hope I didn't bore you. And thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week. And I don't know what it will be about, but I'm still looking forward to seeing you next week, next Sunday. So this was ITNT. It all ties together. And take care out there, and do not keep your distance. keep each other close when they're trying to scare you. Bye-bye, and take care. They wanna make you over. Oh, over and over again. Hey, girl, don't you think you're a boy? We wanna make you over and over again. We want you to want what we want. Hey, boy. Don't you think you're a girl?